Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So today I have the Bitcoin chart open, and man, it's been quite a day with quite a drop taking place on the chart. However, if you zoom out and look at this, you can see that Bitcoin has been following this fractal fairly well. And if it continues to follow it, we should see a move up, maybe a little bounce right here, and then kind of more sideways movement. At some point, I expect it to hit this trend line, and if it follows this fractal, it should happen right around here, after which it will drop to a capitulation point. Now, why do I have this capitulation point right here at $11,773? Well, there has only been one time in history, let me zoom out and show you. There has only been one time in history where Bitcoin in a decline went below its previous all-time high. In the time it did that, this is where it bottomed out. It bottomed out right at this. After the initial peak, it moved back up. So Bitcoin in a correction does three waves or bounces down to a capitulation point. So you see 1, 2, 3, and then it drops to that capitulation point. So I believe here's your initial peak. This is 1, 2. Right now we're working on the third. So it bottomed out at the first retrace or the first bounce after the initial peak. So historically speaking, the only time Bitcoin has ever declined below this point right here, the previous all-time high, that is where it bottomed out. So historically speaking, this is a potential point where it will bottom out. Now, if you want to delve deeper into this subject, please watch this video where I go into this subject a bit deeper. Now, what I'd like to also discuss, and I pointed this out in my previous video on Bitcoin, so when Bitcoin declines, each decline has a unique theme. So if we zoom in here a little bit, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here you have one peak, here you have another peak that's a taller or higher than this first peak. This is on wave 1 right here. And if you zoom in even closer, you'll see that there's also this little intermediate peaks right here. Well, on wave 2, you have the same concept at play as well. So here you have one peak with the second one, or the latter one, taller than the first one, and you also have those two little intermediate peaks. On the decline, it drops, goes sideways, drops again. On this decline, it does the same thing. It drops, goes sideways, drops again. Here we see it goes sideways. In fact, it actually goes down a little bit, goes up, and then drops down. This one does the same thing, goes down a little, goes up, and then drops again. So the fact that it is following this fractal right here, so the fractal that I have on there is essentially, it's this right here. So the fact that it is following this over here is in keeping with the theme that Bitcoin is doing in this decline. It has done this in previous declines as well. It develops its own unique theme in the decline. So zooming back in a little closer, we can see that it made it above this 50-day moving average, but it did not make it to that 200-week moving average. What is significant about this 50-day moving average? Well, let me zoom out and I'll show you. Using the 50-day moving average, it's a good way to help identify the waves down. So here, it gets above it, and that's one wave. When it declines from this wave 1, it goes below it. On wave 2, it starts getting above it, and then it drops below it. So on this wave 3, which I believe this is wave 3, it's getting above it, and that's in keeping with this system of getting above it, crashing below it. So now it may not get above it right here. We'll have to see how things play out. But at some point, it will probably crash, deep dive below it, and that will be the capitulation point. Now, this trend line is important because every single time in Bitcoin corrective structures, it hits this trend line. So you can draw a trend line. After the initial peak, it moves up, and at that first retrace, from that first retrace, you could draw a trend line. once that second wave has formed, and it usually hits that trend line at some point, the third wave, sometimes it goes above it, it gets pulled back in. It could even travel down on top of it for a little bit, but eventually it gets pulled down below it. At least it has in the past. So if you drew a trend line here, you would see too that if you connected it here, so if you connected it here and align it with the second wave, the third wave, you can see how it hits it here. This whole trend line thing, it's a staple of Bitcoin declines. So here we are zoomed in again. Folks, if you enjoy this type of video where I deep dive into chart structures and examine fractals and patterns, you should hit that subscribe button because you'll be notified of when I put out new videos. I put out videos on a regular basis. You should also hit that thumbs up button if you found value in this video. I'm not a financial advisor, so none of this information should be construed as financial or investment advice. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, you can follow me at Chart Historian. I post regularly on Twitter. So glad you caught this video. Thank you for watching it. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.